All right. What's up, everybody? Welcome to BioWest 3 Raw TV. Today, very special guest, Milos Sarcev. Milo, thank you so much for being on the show. It's been a long time coming. I've been wanting to do this for a very long time. Thank you.
Well, Jerry, yeah, I responded to you right away. I would do it. You know that I'm super busy, but I'm going to take the time because it's important. I mean, first, you and I never talked. I know that you're very knowledgeable, and we see eye to eye many times. And then recently, I've seen the video that you posted, like, Milos is not lying, right? Because that was like one of those first examples of you actually had my handwriting from somebody, and I don't know who, right? Yeah. But you know, the whole idea that I tried to express a zillion times is, why would I try to lie and misinform, right? You know, people, like, let's go on getbig.com. I don't know if you follow since then. There was this crazy guy, GH15 or whatever else back in the day. Well. And he was writing so many suicidal the cycles, right? And suggesting to the people that I actually went online on the Get Big, and I said, like, listen, don't listen to this idiot. Here it is. This is Olympia cycle. And I posted something, you know, very much to what you read, you know, that time. So you approached me, and this is what I want people to understand. You're seriously concerned about youngsters and about people that maybe being directed in a wrong direction, right? So explain a little bit so we can touch all the subjects.
So yeah, so basically, you know, I've been doing this. This is 30 years I've been doing this, and I came up around the time where, of course, you were competing. You were one of the guys that I looked up to, and you know, we didn't really know because it was very taboo, so people didn't talk about it. But eventually, you would learn because you get in with the people at the gym after you've been training long enough, and they saw you putting in the effort and you're serious about it. Then eventually, they would talk to you about it, and people would direct you. But it was a lot different than it is now, right? Like you mentioned GH15. Now, you know, I had never seen anything like those cycles, and I had been around, of course, for a while. And my biggest, I was 5'9", 273. I mean, I was using everything that everybody was using, but it still wasn't what he was talking about. And, you know, I back then already, I was kind of like, what, are they really doing that? And, you know, of course, I'm good friends with a lot of the pros, and all of them were just like, look, no, that's not what we do. And, you know, it's really not what we do. And he kind of phased out a little bit. But now we have this new wave of people that are coming out on YouTube, and they're saying things. And I'm like, this is just wrong. It's just wrong, you know? And that's when I said, you know, I had these documents. I call them the Milos documents. And what happened was I had a friend of mine, she was dating a pro, and you were working with him, and you had written all these documents for him. And when they split up, he moved out. And what happened was he was like, I already got a copy of them. And he's like, you can just throw them out. Well, she looked at him and saw some things about diet, and she didn't really understand the other stuff. She goes, would you want these? You might help you with your diet. And I said, if it's from Milos, I'll take it. So I went over her house and got it. And lo and behold, it had the diet, it had how to use insulin. You drew little graphs. It had the cycles, everything. And I was like, okay, this is what they're really doing, because this is Milos. Now, I had also understood that you were helping a lot of guys back then with their diet, nutrition, drug cycles, all stuff like that. There was, I don't know if it was you or Nasser, they called the insulin wizard. Like somebody called somebody the insulin wizard back then, because you guys were the first ones to really start using that stuff back in the day.
You want me to tell you a story about that very quickly?
Sure.
So, because it's interesting. And you probably heard, and many people get bored with my stories, but Nasser somebody is Yugoslavian. His mother was from Yugoslavia, father from Egypt. He competed in Yugoslavian championship with me, you know, back in '85. He won overall. I was second in my class and stuff. Then he started competing before me as a pro, I think 1990, and I started 91. So when I started competing, I was beating him 91, 92, 93, right? And then he came to me in a FIBO show once, and he said, okay, would you tell me what you're doing? So I literally sit down for 2 hours, explain everything in a great detail. Honestly, I mean, I would not spend a minute lying to somebody. I mean, come on. I see you can wake me up in the middle of the night, any part of the year, anywhere in the world. I will tell you always the same thing. Either I'm going to tell you, I'm not going to tell you. This is how it goes. Right. So I explained him everything to a T. Then '94, he competed at Olympia and immediately moved to San Diego, and I invited him as a guest. And I didn't bring the journals. I don't know. I just moved to this house. I had those journals. You probably saw it. I had the journals from 1987. Every year I would write down every little milligram and gram, macros and micros, right? So it was there on a table, and when he came in, so what is this? And then he opened, and so he's like saying something in German to his wife, Birgit, and so said, Nasser, this is exactly what I told you, isn't it? And he's again speaking German. He's not responding to me. So finally, his wife, actually Birgit, Bisera, he changed her name into Yugoslavian name. Because Milos, Nasser did exactly the opposite. I say, excuse me? So 93, when I told him how to use insulin, GH, which cycle to actually use, how much to use, he didn't want to believe a word that I was saying because I compete against him. So he would think, because that was kind of his personality, he would misinform you. So to basically, give you the bad info, kind of what Arnold Schwarzenegger was saying about Columbo, right? I'm his father, right? So if he comes to me for advice and we compete, I'll give him wrong advice. Right. I would never do that. But to make long story short, he goes, okay, can I take this journalist home? So I said, go. And he took like my couple of years, and there was that famous thing like, oh, you're eating 500 grams of protein? Yeah. How much you eating? 250. I said, Nasser, for the love of God, you're so much bigger guy. Protein is the only building macronutrient. You can take all the energy you want. That doesn't matter. What you need is building blocks for. So if I did 500, he went 600, right? To make that story shorter, January 95, we started training together. We were training partners. He went on my insulin protocol. He exploded like nobody I have ever seen in my life. I mean, I say this story about Flex Wheeler that really transformed in 2003. Maybe I can touch that subject too. But Nasser, and first I was going to tell you, first when he goes, oh, you're using insulin, insulin just made me fat, so I never wanted to use it. I said, Nasser, if you use it wrongly, 100% for sure is going to make you fat. That's why diabetics are fat. Insulin is not selective, it's going to store everything. So if you don't time it properly, you have a wrong diet, triglycerides lingering around, it's going to store 100%. You can't avoid it. It can be intramuscular triglyceride, but regardless, it's going to be stored. Yeah. So 95 January, we started. He went to like 310 pounds, pretty much contest ready. I mean, we're talking 1995, right? It's like, it was unthinkable. But anybody that can see 94 Olympia, Nasser, and 95 Night of the Champions, and Houston, which was 5 months later, they're not going to believe the difference. At that time, right, he was looking at my cycles. And again, so he didn't really believe that these are the cycles, right? Because
he thought you gave him fake notebooks.
Yeah, they would want to always believe, right, that there is more to it. And right. That GH15, I don't know, this new wave of, I'm going to call them idiots that suggest, so high. Okay, let's look at from the perspective. If I'm a drug dealer and I tell you that Dorian was using 3 parabolan a week, 76 milligrams, right? Or I tell you 2,500 milligrams, what is better? I want to sell 2,500 milligrams, not 200, right? So that's how this all started. And this is when I jump in to say, please think about it. But not to digress too much. Here is how it is, because you said you found out from some people in the industry, right? And we constantly have that bro science, pro medical science. Number one, no medical doctor or medical science to this day, right, did any clinical studies on use of anabolic steroids for athletes or for bodybuilders especially, right? So there's no such a thing. So they're going to start the bro science. Well, listen, yeah. When I came to America in 1987 to compete at Universe, I was drug-free. I was convinced that Arnold Schwarzenegger is drug-free, because I've seen in the magazine, and there was a picture, the crazy bicep shot, right? Black and white, when he looked like a freak. It's no steroids. So I really went to the States thinking this is it. This is it. But then I lost, so many shows, and I realized, oh my God, I'm here to make a living from bodybuilding. I either do what big boys do or I don't. It's just like that general knowledge of, oh, steroids not healthy, it's dangerous, and all this stuff, right? When I talked to my family, all medical doctors, initially right away, stay away from steroids, hormones. You're gonna, create hormonal chaos, disbalance, and you're never gonna, come back to normal. So of course I was kind of careful, but as we started, right, you in 1980s for me, right, 87, I was very, very careful. It's okay. I don't want to destroy my health, but I want to enhance my anabolism, protein synthesis, the reduce the degradation, and this compound and this compound, yeah, it would make sense. And there was like literally minimal amounts. This is how we started. And if you get anybody an interview from 1980s, from Lee Haney, Barry DeMay, these guys, Rich Gaspari, they're going to tell you, I mean, their cycles were probably 1/5 of a regular cycle nowadays.
And I read in your, in your documents, which you said minimum of 12 weeks to go off, right?
Yeah.
And this is another topic this is one of the reasons why I hit you up now, because there's a topic going on that one of these YouTubers said it's safer just to stay on the drugs than to come off. Now, I've heard that in the past from people that wanted to stay on, and they tricked themselves into saying, well, I think it's less on the body to stay on. You guys always came off, right?
1,000,000%. Okay. Now I remember that was a major thing you want to discuss. So sorry that I digressed, but here it is.
I love hearing it all.
No, yeah, I'm sure, and I'm sure other people as well. I was with Dennis Jim on the podcast with, who was it? Flex Wheeler, Chris Cormier, Tony Freeman. For us, off meant off. PCT meant PCT without any bridging, without any of those. When I was general rule of thumb, if I would be 10 weeks on, minimum 5 weeks off. And if I can stretch it, I would stretch it. 12 weeks, 6 weeks off. 16 weeks, 8 weeks off. This is kind of thing. Of course, you can imagine I competed 110 times. So it was all experiment for me first, okay, before I started sharing knowledge with the other guys, when I felt very secure and safe. And before I conclude that story, I'm going to tell you, 58 years old, used for 33 years steroids, okay? I never had a single side effect that I would tell you, oh, I was concerned, I didn't feel good, affected me this way, that way. The only thing that happened to me was that Synthol injection. There was a wrong administration by my ex. This is a different story. But now, and this is maybe information that not too many people would want to hear it, but I'm gonna say it again. I didn't have a single regret ever of using it, right? And I would advise my whole family, my friends, okay? Anabolic steroids, as I said in a generation, I had an interview, medicaments, okay? To promote constructive metabolism, not destructive. So if you just erase every possible information right now, and I tell you there is a group of medicaments that promote constructive metabolism. They are given to the critically catabolic patients, dying, burned, injured, reconvalescent after the surgeries, HIV, cachexia. So they are dying, and they revive. Oh, so just focus on it. Is this good or bad? Oh my God. It's constructive metabolism. Good. Now, when we talk about doping, right? Back in the 70s and 80s, if you read about anabolic steroids, you would read, Oh, they don't improve the performance. They don't do jack shit, all this
My
fucking
doctor
lies.
told me that before I went on. My
Yeah.
doctor said, I don't know why they don't work. I went from 173 pounds to 230 in 10 weeks, and he couldn't believe it. And he was a medical doctor.
Yeah, so he actually, when he told you, he actually believed.
Yeah.
He actually believed. So, slam dunk, you prove him. But listen, I understand from ethical standpoint of WADA, USADA, Olympic Games, all this. Whoever is using doping is physically superior, bigger, stronger, faster, recuperate different. So it is for sure, yeah, it's superior. But I never talked about this, before, but let's talk about this. Any athlete in any sport that wants to reach highest level, they want to maximize everything, right? Maximize training stimulus, recovery, supplementation, nutrition, maximizing everything. And for bodybuilders, that one more step was, okay, using anabolic drugs, right? So for me, going for Mr. Universe and later to go to Mr. Olympia, there was no brainer. I have to take it. But now I have to truly understand what maximizes, right? What amount of any medication is, you can take one aspirin or ibuprofen, or you can take 100. And what is going to be? 100 is going to be 100 times better? Hell no. Okay. So with the steroids, I'll tell you, it's such a low dosage that anybody coming for the first time, okay, using it should be used, and they're going to explode.
Right.
And like you said, you gain what, 30 something pounds?
And that was off of 1 cc of testosterone. And I did that for 10 weeks. And in the middle, I bridged up to 2 cc's for 2 weeks, then tapered back down. And by the time we were done, I was 60 pounds heavier. Like, everybody in the gym was freaking out because we had these little Polfa-Jeffa omnidrins that were like 2 years out of date. So they weren't even super potent, but it was 250 milligrams. I was 20 years old, and my body just blew up. And they were like, how much? And I was like, I'm just taking that one thing. And they couldn't believe it.
Yes. You see, this is real life story. So whoever is listening to this, you're going to say, oh, Jerry and Milos are full of shit and all this stuff. Why would we talk about this? I mean, seriously. So anybody getting on a juice should be with the absolute minimal dosage. Okay, they should research a little bit and see. I have a guys, okay, 18, 19 years old, right? And say, I want to start. I said, how long are you training? Oh, almost 2 years. I said, for the love of God, you're a teenager. Yeah. You're training only for 2 years. You don't deserve, you didn't earn the right to use it. So wait.
Absolutely.
But nowadays, when somebody said, like, people go in the gym and already next month they're using it. And then they have this notion that you just mentioned, it's better to stay on all the time, right? And then they heard they should be using so much more, and then they get into trouble. Okay, so as you were saying, the only logical reason when those people are saying stay on it, don't get off of it, is if you were on super high dosage, right? You suppress your endogenous hormone production, right? And then you just, drop off, and you maybe don't even do PCT, right? And then you plummet down and you go in depression and all kinds of stuff, right? These kind of things. But why would you ever go this direction? That's the wrong direction to begin with. So I always did the PCT in between my cycles. I always went on ACG and Clomid. This was, a must. Not touching testosterone. Like now, if you see some of my programs, I'm going to tell you for sure, my programs are circulating around, and then sometimes you're going to see my athlete's PCT, but he's still using 125 milligrams twice a week, right, of testosterone. Well, yeah, but that guy, when I started working with him, was in crazy cycle. That first I reduced it, and even when I reduced it, I wasn't comfortable really shutting him down, because it's like, these kind of things. Let me wait. Next cycle is going to be moderate, and next PCT can be without it, and then never ever is going to touch it again.
So the goal is, even if you're on high dosages, to get to a point where you can come off use the PCT so that you're totally off before you go back on. And people don't understand, if they come off those drugs for a certain period of time, they can go back on low dosages and they'll work better.
Yeah. Oh,
They don't realize that.
This is a major thing. And listen, again, unfortunately, see, back in the 80s and 90s, especially early 90s, none of us, I mean, to find one guy from Dorian to Nasser for Kevin Flex, Ronnie, Sean, Lee Priest. I mean, I guarantee you, and see their cycles, you would laugh. I mean, not laugh.
I hear that all the time.
Yeah, you laugh. Yeah. And none of us was on forever. You know, all of us had a long times off. I mean, Kevin, Sean, Ray did a 6 months off. Yeah. Ronnie did, I don't know, 3-4 months. Kevin got, you know, this is how it was. For somebody that competed like I did, I competed throughout the year. I had to time so many weeks I can be on, and then I have to have this much time off so I can go a little bit on for my next one and stuff like that. There was February, Ironman, March Arnold Classic. Then there was Night of Champions, Pittsburgh, Niagara Falls, you know, May, and then there was September. So this is what I was doing, but my whole intention always was maximize in the healthiest possible way. So just to you know, make a point of what you're saying, everybody is listening, that somebody is brainwashing you and telling you you should be on constantly. Okay, you are prescribing disaster, guarantee. It's not a matter of if it's going to happen, it's just when it's going to happen. You cannot be on the cycle and bridging and then back on the cycle and bridging and back on the cycle, especially if you're in your 20s. What is going to happen? What, you're going to be forever for 30s, 40s, 50s, and I'm almost 60 right now. For me,
you say bridging, you mean like the blast and cruise? We're using a little bit in between.
Yes,
that's the bridging, right?
Yeah, I mean,
they don't call it bridging anymore. They call it blast and cruise, and people will get confused because the young kids have a whole different lingo. So basically, don't stay on lower dosages to bridge between cycles on a cruise. Get off.
So hold on. So because I didn't even know what is bridging before, so somebody educated me, like, what the hell is bridging? Also, bridging was, you know, from 2 cycles, so you make a bridge when you have PCT. So that's cruising now, right?
Yeah. So cruising would be like if you took a heavy amount of cycle for right now, then you would just come down to like 400 milligrams of testosterone for like 8 weeks, and then start blasting again after that.
Yeah.
And you know, so that's what they're suggesting now, like really never coming off.
I mean, listen, it's ridiculous. I mean, does anybody actually thinks about it? You know, you're just a monkey see, monkey do, and you know, exactly. Yeah, I'm the sheep. I'm gonna just follow. Tell me what I need to do.
Well, what happens is these people get they get a following, and people look up to them like they're experts. You know, and sometimes these guys don't even compete. They've never competed once in their entire life. And I'm like, well, how are you giving people advice about what to do if you've never competed yourself, let alone competed for any length of time? You know,
this is like taking sex advice from the virgin. I mean, really, I mean, bottom line, and what, you're actually taking his advice, and, you know, I'm serious.
Yeah.
So I don't want to say other bad things, but listen, what is that you know of normal amount of weekly testosterone nowadays? Because you read mine from the paper, and when I said this, I have never, ever did more than 750, three testosterone a week, right? And that was pushing. And when we talk about Troy Abs or Johnny Jackson or Dennis James, my athletes back in it, 500, okay? This is Jay Cutler. I mean, he speaks openly about it, right? Yeah. He would take 500. He would take, you know, some other anabolics, maybe a little bit more GH, a little bit more stuff like that. But why so much testosterone? Even
I think what happens is these guys don't understand, and I understand it because Kevin Levrone is a really close friend of mine, and he's actually trained me for a show. We were training together, and I watched his body change like nothing I've ever seen just from training and eating. People don't realize that you guys have genetics that are so far beyond what we can imagine, right? It's like an NBA player. He's 7 feet tall. That's genetic. He didn't teach himself to be 7 feet tall. that even your bodies utilize these drugs great at low dosages. So they take the low dosage, it doesn't do the same thing. So they figure, well, you guys must be on tons of stuff because look at them. And I'm like, you guys don't understand. I watched Kevin naturally when he first did his first comeback. We were in the gym together. He went from like 190 pounds to 240 in a month. Not to, he blew right past us and we were on gear. And that's when it clicked. I said, it's not about how much I take, because he was looking at my cycle and he's like, what's this? Well, he didn't even know what the drugs were. And I'm looking at him, I'm like, I can't believe how big he got so fast. He wasn't eating properly or training. And that's when it dawned on me. I said, it doesn't matter how much I take. I'm never going to do that. I'm just not, my genetics are not like that. So they think you guys take way more. That's why they laugh at what you guys put up there. Then they start taking more. And now the average testosterone is 1,000 milligrams for like an 18-year-old who just starts taking steroids for the first time.
I mean, how ridiculous is this? I mean, we all know what is natural production, 10 milligrams a day, you know, maybe. This is for a concept. You are 18, 19 years old. Your hormones are boosting, right? And you're going to take 1,000 right now. What's it going to do? It's going to shut you down 100% guarantee, especially if you do this much for a prolonged period of time. And then, like you said, okay, they're going to go for whatever. All the athletes that come to me to work with me, first I ask them, give me your cycles for last 2 years.
Yeah.
Okay. I wanna see last 2 years. You know, don't give me that bullshit now. And what I've seen is what you're saying. Never stopped. It just that bridging, like I said, bridging 400 or 500. Let's say that should be your cycle, 400 or 500, not the 400 cruising. Right. What you said. It's unbelievable. Yeah. So
I've seen the guys that you've worked with, such as Regan Grimes, like immediately there was a difference, right? So what is the difference between the guys now, what they're doing, not just drug wise, but even diet or training wise? Maybe they're not training as hard. I don't know, but it seems to be like when you get a hold of somebody, you transform them very quickly. Right. Yeah. And in essence, like, you know, I know I've seen Regan's workouts afterwards, like you do the giant sets, which most people can never handle because they can't fathom how to do that. But it's like, I feel like the training nowadays is kind of like the last thing they think about. And the diet is kind of so-so because IFWAM, you can eat like whatever you want. It doesn't matter. And they just take more drugs to try to compensate for the other two things.
That's the notion. Okay. You touched the subject of us going 500-600 grams of protein before, right? You've seen it.
Yeah. That's 600 on those papers that I have. It's a 600.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I had, I posted on Instagram a few times. You know, there was a must. I talked to Dennis and Tony Freeman, and they said, like, well, Gunther was saying 2 days ago, the hardest thing was to eat so much. You think I look at that chicken breast and want to eat it? I mean, the last thing that I would want to do it, right? But that was the part. This was a must. Nowadays, they don't want it. Okay, then everything is overtraining. You train too much. You know, you do high intensity workout. We were training 6 days a week, twice a day. Okay. And every workout was, okay, when I stepped my foot in the gym, you've seen me train Dennis James, Dennis Fall, Hidetada, whoever was there, Silvio, Joel, I don't know, Johnny Jackson, whoever would step in, they knew in the Colosseum gym. That's why it's called Colosseum. You put your foot in, you're a gladiator and you're fighting for your life. This is how it was. This is how, if you're honest to yourself, maximum stimulation of maximum amount of muscle fibers of that muscle that you're training, it takes, effort to do that. It's not the machine isolation, whistleblower, triceps, rope extensions, right?
Whistleblower.
Yeah, that's a funny thing I heard from John Brown. But seriously, okay, so first, if you're talking, make maximal progress in shortest period of time. Then you have to really take a notebook and write, okay, how do I maximize training? Okay, so how do I maximize my nutrition? Caloric requirement, timing of macronutrients, okay, can I push it here? You see, even myself, initially, that's the notion, you kind of, we're supposed to be low carbs, right? Bodybuilders, right? So back in the 80s, that's how I was approaching. I was way undernourished. I was too afraid to eat enough carbs, right? And I realized, after contest, let me have this rebound phase and let me just see what I can get away with it. Inspect what you expect. I'm watching, I'm not getting it. So I increase. And then I realized, oh my God, this is how much I can get away with it.
Yeah.
Okay, now I can grow and not gain any. I was in shape year around from 91 until 2003, basically.
Yeah.
And this is what I tried to implement on any of my athletes. I mean, let's face it. I mean, really, which bodybuilder doesn't want to look contest ready year around?
Absolutely.
We all do. But most of them, okay, they get so fat in the off season, and then they have to crash diet, and then of course they shut down metabolism. They have the cravings, they have crashes. They're just so fucking hungry, and then they blew up again with the excuse, eat big to get big, right? And then that circle repeats. You gain 30, 40 pounds, 50, right? And then you have to lose it. How healthy is that? Just that alone, if you look, right? I mean, I know guys that gain like 70 pounds after the
I've done it. I did it. I used to go up to 270. I compete at like 198.
Yeah, but see,
you were just
and you're probably, because, okay, you were just so starved after the contest, right? And craving all this nutrient, right? And then you let the dog off the leash, right?
Yeah, and you're going.
And then, you never stop. But
yeah,
if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. Okay, so again, I'm not trying to be a smart ass and say I'm better than everyone. No, that piece of paper that you have from me, you mentioned graphs, and also I was trying to educate my athlete to the point that, okay, you know what you're doing now, right? And listen, my protocol might not be the best. You can improve on this protocol, but these are the bases, right? So training, maximal stimulation, beautiful. Okay, now maximal nutrition. From a standpoint of macronutrients, enough calories, enough protein, enough energy, good. And now timing, right? And then supplementation can really help. Now we're talking about steroids. Steroids, anabolic androgenic. Okay, so why do we take anabolic steroids? For the androgeneity or anabolism? Oh, we are taking for anabolic action, right. To build a muscle, not to have that secondary characteristics enhanced.
Yeah.
This is not why we started. We were already with enough testosterone. We didn't have any male problems, right? So we used anabolic steroid cycles to improve muscle mass, to improve strength and all that stuff. But as you said, people start taking all this testosterone. Why so much testosterone?
It was these ratios. Again, people like GH15. Again, and it did come to fruition that GH15 and those people that were running that thing were actually selling growth hormone and things like that. They were selling it like in the back door, which makes sense why they were promoting use 30 IU, stuff like that. What happens is they come out and they say stuff like, you need a gram of test, a gram of trenbolone. And I'm like, look, if you've ever tried real trenbolone, 300 milligrams a week is a lot. Like, you do not need a gram of just, tren a week. But what happens is these kids read it, and there's a lot of stuff on the black market that's fake. So when they get a lot of the stuff, they can take what they perceive as those doses, and they're probably getting about a quarter of it. And they're like, oh, I'm doing this. And I'm like, how can you be 150 pounds taking 3 tablets of Anadrol a day? There's no way. Like, you would at least gain 30 pounds off the Anadrol alone in 4 weeks. So they're not real. But it's like, I think the people that are promoting it are selling the stuff that's underdosed. And then it's like, the young kids grab a hold of it and they go, well, this must be what Milos and those guys were doing because they were so big. And they start buying more and more and more of it. And I'm like, look, the drugs that we had back then, these things were powerful. I tried the real Paralabrones from Negma. They were from France. I've used those. I've used the Cycline. I've used all that stuff. 2 sustenance a week, 500 milligrams, you put on 25 pounds. Like,
that's it.
On that, So I think
that's all you need. Yes.
Between the underdose drugs and the people that were selling the drugs and the people on the internet, it just spreads like wildfire. And the problem is, and I remember being young, I didn't want to listen to the older guys, right? The older guys were out of touch with reality, and we got all new stuff now. We got science now. Like you said, science doesn't cover what we do. So it kind of puts this myth out there that gets pushed by these so-called experts. And I'm like, the experts are the ones like you and the other guys like Kevin and those guys that experimented. Even Dan Duchesne, that's where I first learned stuff, was Dan. Dan experimented on himself. He didn't go with science. He took everything. He looked terrible, but he took everything himself, and found the side effects and combinations and stuff. And these guys it's like a combination. Once you find the combination, you don't need to look anymore. But these people are recreating in the combination, figuring those guys don't know anything. And I think that honestly, I think somebody's going to get hurt. I mean, we see Boston Lloyd, he's one of them right off the bat that, you know, I mean, realistically, his life ended early because of things he was doing. He thought that wouldn't hurt him, you know?
For sure. I mean, listen, I knew Dan Duchesne is, it's interesting because I worked with Bill Phillips back in the day, and I remember when I gave Bill Phillips insulin protocol, he immediately sent it to Dan Duchesne to see what you think, and then Dan responded to him, "God damn, this might work, right?" So yeah, Dan was out there, but see, even when he, if I can mention this insulin, because a lot of people point finger at me, oh, it's ruined the sport and all that stuff. Oh, insulin is bad news and all that stuff. Like, really? Insulin is the bad news? Anabolic hormone itself, right? If you use it properly, when it can be your best friend, not your worst enemy, right? It can save your beta cells from pancreas, and it can enhance everything dramatically if you use the potency of transporting nutrients into the cells when it matters. Okay, right. I used it pretty much every day from 1993. You know, okay, I didn't. I lie. There was the days when you have to cut down on carbs close to the contest, and on those days you can't afford them, right?
Yeah.
But it worked like a space clock. Okay, but just because they don't know how to use it, and then they have assumptions, so it's bad news, you don't use it. Then they talk about GH, right? And then because that idiot, the GH15, whatever, they were selling 30 units a day and whatever, it's ludicrous. Okay. I tell you this, since 30 years ago, when first time I found somebody that was really a huge expert from Eastern Bloc, Eastern DDR, Eastern Germany, Romania, Bulgaria, Russia, right? And this is first time when I've seen the groups of steroids, right? So DHT, NOR, and testosterone base, right? And how you combine them and what would matter in this. And then you add this, you add that, you add that. So GH, even back then, I tell you, the recommended top dosage would be for the athletes 0.7 units per kilo per week. So that would be 100 kilo guy, 220, would use 10 units a day. And that's the maximum dosage that you should never cross. Nowadays, I know people that take 50 units a day, you know, ridiculous.
Do they look any better from that, or do they look worse from
no,
it?
No, really, but this...
Kevin had told me that he used growth hormone for this one show. And he said, no matter what, he couldn't get hard enough. He said, I couldn't get dry. He's like, and I stopped using it at that point. He goes, because my skin wouldn't thin out. He's like, yeah, I looked like way better in the off season. When it came time for the show, he goes, I didn't look better on the higher dosages.
I mean, so he did use it off season and pre-contest?
I guess he said he only used it pre-contest like 1 or 2 times. He said he just didn't have the right look, but he didn't think that was it, you know, because everybody was talking it up so much. But he said when I stopped it, he goes, all of a sudden my skin got like shrink wrapped again. He goes, and I was placing better again after I stopped taking it. So he goes, I stopped taking it. You know, he already had the mass, you know, but he was just like, it was a look that if you use too much, it gives you a look that's not good. Like you just don't look muscular and lean.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what's your experience. Of course, I would recommend, if somebody would tell me maximization of your condition with or without, I would tell you with, of course. And I would top it off at the 10 units. You know, this is how it is. It does lean you out, right? It is a strong anti-catabolic. You know, it can, make you retain water a little bit, but you know, sees this in 2-3 days. We were stopping GH 7 days out, you know, but even, you know, I pushed what is going to happen with 6 or 5 and 3. And I mean, I did it many guys up like 3 days before a show. Paul Dillette would do it day of the show. And when we talked, back in the day, even with Dorian, he says he always chicken out and he stopped early, but you know, he was thinking that he should use it all the way through. Yeah, so it's interesting about Kevin, but Kevin did low dosages of everything anyway.
Yeah.
To put things in perspective, right? I'm going to tell you, I got the phone call from one of my athletes once, a few years, 2006. Okay, and he said, Milos, tell me how much testosterone am I using a week? You know, so I mean, what sense does it make that somebody calls you and says, tell me how much I'm using? I said, well, wait, it's a stupid question. No, say it, say it. I said 750 a week. But then I heard, a three-way call. I didn't know that was a three-way call. Somebody else, oh, bullshit. I said, what? So the third guy that was top pro that I later worked with, right? He says, no. It's 750 a day.
Ooh, that's what he thought.
Three sessions on a day.
That's what this other guy was taking?
Yeah, okay. Because this is understanding of like, oh, for the love of God, really. Yeah. So anyway, the whole idea was, when I finally started working with this guy, I said, you want to tell me that you're gonna cut my cycles dramatically and I'm gonna grow? I say, yes, that's exactly what I'm telling you. And you'll see it, and you'll see it within a month, right? And this is exactly reduce his cycles to nothing. I mean, really, if you have a real stuff, you know that 500 milligrams of testosterone is going to do a miracle. You experience it yourself. 750, okay, that's, Olympia competitor that wants to push the limits, not a milligram more for anybody that is doing it nowadays. And I would probably reduce the testosterone to 500, so maybe I can increase my anabolics a little bit, because they want anabolic action rather than androgenic. That's obviously, this is why we take steroids. But your message to the listeners right now would be, how can you and I influence them, to think about and not cruise, not be on the steroids forever, right? They should know, especially if they're youngsters. You said 18, 19, 20 years old, or Jesus Christ, if you take steroids, for sure, negative feedback, your body is going to start producing your testosterone, and yes, you're going to eventually get yourself in trouble. If you did short cycles, moderate, beautiful, you could have maximized the results. Now you have to clean out, and possibly what I was doing always, initiate endogenous production as soon as you can with the strong PCT.
Yeah.
For me, and listen, many of my guys actually improved dramatically during a PCT. And my goal, that was golden rule. When you're off, you have to train just as intense or harder, okay? And your diet has to be just as strict or stricter, right? And let your endogenous pick up. Listen, when we were doing, and I said this to a couple of guys, and one that you just mentioned, because he didn't feel it before anything about HCG. I say, if you did proper dosage, it's going to feel like somebody kicked you in the balls. I mean, seriously, this is how it is. And that's what we were doing back in the day, right? Very high dosage initially, and then, dropping down. But I have never felt any trans period. I felt completely normal, on or off. You do lose a little bit of that, androgenic hardness and graininess,
that Photoshop look. Yeah,
you do. But muscle mass wise and body fat, it was not much difference.
So I know you, we're already running over an hour here. I don't want to take up too much of your time. This is great. I've been waiting for so long to get you on this to do this.
And we can do this anytime. Jerry,
this is fantastic, man. They're again, I love talking shop about the old school stuff, but it's great to hear you say some of the things that, of course, I know for a fact, but I know people are going to listen when you say it as opposed to when I say it a lot of times, which it's one of those things where I come from the old school, but because I wasn't a top pro and I wasn't in the Olympia, you don't know nothing. I'm like, right, but these guys are close friends of mine that Kevin has done the cycles for me. He's trained me. I know what they do, I've known Jay Cutler since I was 20 years old. We grew up in the same area. So it's I've been around these guys, seeing them and watch how they grow. And I think a lot of people just want to get from 0 to 100 like that. They want to go from not training to an Olympian like that. And I'm like, the drugs, when you push the drugs, there is a point where the drugs stop working. And you're taking more and more, and you're not getting the effect, but you're getting side effects from them. But if they get off and they clean out, they can stay on the lower dosage. When they go back on, they work better again. You can keep using the smaller dosages by going on and off and slowly building up. You go 3 steps up, 1 step back, 3 steps up, 1 step back, and not ruin your body and not get all the side effects.
This is exactly how it is. But okay, if I'm understanding you correctly, you still are suggesting from a high dosage going to the lower dosage. You know, so and this is a trend nowadays. Okay.
Yeah.
So let's talk about these newcomers that maybe for the first time they want to do this first time. Okay.
And again, this is all for informational purposes only.
Yeah, because we are not medically qualified to give any advice. Yeah. Thank you for reminding me. I don't like to talk about it because then I'm going to be responsible. Listen, initial cycle, minimal dosages, 6 to 8 weeks would be beautiful for a cycle, right? 6 to 8 weeks with a minimal dosages. Like you said, you exploded, you know, with the 500 milligrams of Sarcev. No, you did 250, then 500. You know, yes, that's real life story. Similar to me, similar to any of the people. Because you mentioned Trembolone, I just remember because recently I've seen the picture. My first anabolic was Finaject.
Yeah.
Okay. Yep. And there was 50 milliliter bottle, and it was 30 milligrams per milliliter. Okay, 30.
Yeah.
And I was using it 3 times a week, 30. And like you said, with the 500 milligrams of test and 30 of this, I exploded. I mean, this was like ridiculous. To the point, every time you come to the gym, every time you pick up, is this the same, you know, 100-pound
barbell lighter? Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, it's like this is the same, you know, 4 plates on the squats, and it's nothing. I mean, I can play with it. So, you know, this is that doping effect that you're going to increase the strength. But why would you start with a gram, like you said?
They don't understand it. Yeah.
Why? Okay, and then you already have a suggestion. Don't get off of it. So 1 gram for a prolonged period of time is going to suppress your testosterone, and for sure, then when you get off of it, you might be in trouble. That's why those people, they're going to get you in trouble. Going to say to stay out of trouble, you know, just stay on 400 and then go back on, and then to the rest of your life. What the hell? I mean,
well,
I'm sorry.
Lower, if they started with 200 milligrams instead of 1,000, they could go on that, ride it out, and then taper off of that or jump off of that on a PCT. They wouldn't see a decline very much at all, but their bodies would recover. And after they're done recovering, you can put the 200 back in, and it might do the same thing again for a little while. Like you increase it as your body stops growing, not just keep increasing it because you know the numbers are going up and you want to push the numbers.
Yeah, and just because you say those influencers or whatever they're doing and they're telling you this, before you consider taking, do a little bit of research and then ask yourself a question. So I said it initially, I'm not medically qualified to give that advice, but there is no medical doctor on the planet Earth that is qualified to give you the anabolic cycle for bodybuilding. Okay, so bro science is legitimate since 60s and 70s and then 80s. I mean, I do remember meeting my my idol Frank Zane beginning of 90, and when I talked to him, right, it's like, oh well, you know, I can only imagine if you guys back then did what we're doing now, right? What is what makes you think we didn't? Like, oh, okay, right? But all those dosages, you know, like holy grail of bodybuilding, DECA, D-ball, and test, you know, dosages were minimal.
Yeah.
You know, there was 500 of test plateaued. There was 30 milligrams of D-ball. You know,
what's interesting now is the D-ball they have now is methanedione. It's not methanostenolone. They don't actually have the drugs that we had back in the day, which is what I think is confusing because there are people I go, I'm on D-ball. I'm like, which one is it? You know, this version. Methanedione, it's not the same thing. And like, no, it's D-ball. And I'm like, I'm not going to argue. You know, like it is what it is. You know?
Yeah, they put it in the same category. But listen, that SIBA, I had it original, that small little bottle, right?
Blue bottle with a white cap.
Yeah, but listen, did you see the pamphlet? Do you remember?
Yeah.
Suggested dosage. Suggested dosage is use initially 2 tablets, and then every 8 hours take another one. So plasma half-life, you started with double, and then within 8 hours is going to be half of it. So you just replenish it. 4 tablets.
Yeah,
that was 20 milligrams a day. Okay, well, bodybuilders that I talked to, they did 30 milligrams, right? And they did between 200 and 300 milligrams of DECA. DECA that you could buy in the pharmacies was 50 milligrams. You
Yeah.
know, this is it. You know, so and anybody in the 70s, and they were great bodybuilders. You talk Robbie Robinson, Arnold, Lou, Franco. You know, so many, right?
Yeah.
Those are exceptional bodies. And then here comes 80s from Lee Haney and Bertie Fox and you know, Barry DeMay, Rich Gaspari, right? 100% guarantee. You and I right now, we can sign off, guarantee that the dosages that they were using, 1/3 of a first-time user nowadays.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so for those first-time users, don't be brainwashed. Think about it. And I'm going to say this again: if used properly, anabolics can enhance your health. I said that many times. I argue with a few doctors, and then later on they concluded, yes, they promote anabolism, constructive metabolism, if you use wisely, because as the medicaments they're given. I had a 4-degree burns, I don't know if you know, in 2000.
I remember, yeah.
Okay? And instantly, as soon as they come to the burn unit, they gave me oxandrolone, right? And they were giving oxandrolone for including little girls, you know, so no visualization, no any bad side effects. Yeah. And studies that they had was going all the way up to 130 milligrams of oxandrolone. Imagine, yeah. So,
Yeah.
but this was for highly catabolic injuries, and you know, so for the people they're considering, keep your endogenous production, be naturally, you know, the potent and everything else. If you add a little bit to the minimal amounts, 6 to 8 weeks maximum first cycle, then get off of it, go on PCT with the ACG and the Clomid. Yeah. Try to be, as long as you were on 6-8 weeks with the PCT, that is 3-4 weeks, 3-4 more weeks off, then you can consider the next cycle. And that next cycle, as Jerry you just said, it could be the same amount that you use first, or spit in the ocean a little bit more, or at that point you can maybe try to introduce other compound that maybe you didn't experience if you did a primobolan first time and now you want a baldanone second time, and you know, these kind of things. But as you've seen already now, give me 10 different things.
Yeah, all at one time.
Yeah, 10 different things, and let's use the upper dosage. Yeah, that's ridiculous.
We got one more question, and this will be to close it out. So what do you think is the most dangerous steroid, and what do you think is the safest one? I think this could open some eyes, because I think they think that all of these things are just like candy. Like none of them are going to affect you. None of them are going to hurt you. You know, so, but there's definitely like, you know, I think everybody has a different opinion, but I'd like to hear your opinion.
Yeah, I mean, again, from my experience and my opinion, oxandrolone would be the safest one.
Okay.
Oxandrolone, I would say that. The most dangerous ones, well, it could be mint.
Oh,
It could
mint.
be.
All right. So I've tried. Tony Huge came out with a version of mint, and he sent it to me to try. And I tried it, and my body changed so fast that I had to call him and ask him. I said, "Look, it feels like I'm on tren and propionate together." I said, "But it's been 3 days, and I look different." He just laughed and said, "Yeah, that's how it works."
Yeah, it is. Look, we used to use the check drops. There was you know that I was in Project 4 Record as well. And that time we had to beat the test, and that tetrahydrogastrinone was probably the most potent thing I have ever tried ever. That's that clear that Balco Labs use it, right? It's ridiculous. But danger, you know, from hepatic standpoint, you know, cardiovascular, you know, I could say that anything can contribute, but hollow testing would be the hepatic trouble. That's I have somebody coming in. Yeah. So Trenbolone, you know, it's again, most of the people, when you ask them what if it's a one steroid only, they can use. They would probably use Trenbolone. Yeah. So, but I have now Olympia competitors, right, that cannot handle it, and I actually do the cycles without Trenbolone. So you have to use whatever else you can. So from that North standpoint, I would give them NPP, right? And they can handle it. Well, what do you think safest and most dangerous?
Me personally, I saw a lot of toxicity with Anadrol 50. Personally, with like liver toxicity, my liver enzymes would jump up. Of course, we had the ones from it was homogenins from Brazil. You remember those that had the orange backing on them? And
Yeah, I had that
that were made by Syntax in the little red bottle with the white cap.
Syntax, that's the one that we got it.
Yeah, you put 2 tabs in your, or even 1 tablet, you put on 20 pounds in a month. Like your nose would bleed while you were benching. Like it was that much like side effects. But for me, honestly, I think that honestly, Trembolone, because I think that's the one that everybody's taking nowadays. They're doing so much of it that I think maybe lower dosages wouldn't be as harmful, but they're blasting like 700 to 1,000 milligrams a week of Trembolone acetate. They don't even know what parabolin is. If they took Tren-Hex, I'm sure they would take a lot less because it works so unbelievable. But I think the Trembolone acetate for me and the Anadrol, I think together for these guys, the way that they use them, I think it's, again, if somebody using them responsibly, I think that, I don't think they'd be.
I will tell you, Trembolone should be maxed out at maxed out 400 a week. 300 would be probably my preference. 400, okay, yeah. And with Anadrol, 75 milligrams maximum, tablet and a half. Yeah. And we were doing this half, 25. I used that Anopolone from Turkey. Yeah. There was also, but that should be a reasonable amount. With 500 milligrams of test, if somebody would not grow on 50 or 75 milligrams of Anadrol, 300 to 400 milligrams of Tren, and maximum 500 test, they're not going to grow on anything. I mean, this is a bomb.
Awesome. And you guys heard it right here for the first time, like from Milos, who has been the guy who's been helping these guys for years. And like I said, I've always heard these people that I know, like Milos helping with that, Milos helping. Nobody's ever said a bad word about you either, just so you know that. Like in private, nobody's ever talked bad about you. They've always said nice things, but they've always said how smart you were and how much you knew about things, not just the drugs, but the diet too.
Yeah. Listen, I mean, my whole idea is if I can make a difference and help somebody, I would, right? Yeah. So when you say they don't have anything bad to say, there is nothing bad to say. I mean, really, it kind of maybe sounds weird, right? But I literally would like to help any stranger off the street. This is my thing. And now if I'm actually experienced and knowledgeable in something, I should share it. Look, right. I published this insulin article back in 93, 94 for Muscle Media 2000. And many people said,
you published that?
I was a professional Lex. That was me, of course.
It was a red issue. I think it had Tom Platz on the cover. That's how I learned how to use insulin, from that article. Yeah. Nobody was using it around my area. And I opened it up and I read it and I said, okay, 10 grams of carbs for every unit. Yeah. Give me an hour. And I drove to the drugstore. I got the insulin. From that article is where I started experimenting with those guidelines.
Yeah, listen, I was under reader contract, so I couldn't use my name. And Bill Phillips was calling me a professional X. And this is how it all started. So many people say, like, oh, if you kept the secret and you did it yourself, maybe you would be Mr. Olympia. I said, like, listen, I was always like this. If you're true sports athletes, let us have the same tools and then let the best man win. Yeah. Every advice I've ever given to anyone is what I would honestly helpfully to maintain their health and maximize their progress. This is how it is. When they push the limits and say, how about a little bit more? How about a little bit more? I said, like, listen, it's not going to do anything to you, but to learn, if you want to do it, experiment, and then, tell me. And usually, really, I get 4 weeks later, you know what? You're right. I didn't felt a zilch difference from 200 or 800.
Yeah, it's interesting. And you're so knowledgeable about it. And I didn't know that you were the one writing in the magazine. That's so funny.
Yeah. Many of those things, I'm behind it.
Awesome. Well, Milos, thank you so much for taking the time. I really appreciate it. It was great actually being able to talk to you. You're one of the few guys in the industry I haven't met yet, and I'm looking forward. I'm going to head out to Olympia this year. I'm looking forward to seeing you out there. And I'd love to have you on again, of course, like to talk about.
Yeah, of course.
Stuff. People love these old school stories and stuff. So I'm 46
Yeah,
years old, so a lot of my viewers are around my age, so they remember you and all these other guys, and some of the newer guys might not. But I got a feeling some of the stuff we talked about today is going to make its way down to these younger guys. Just when I put
I
up the
hope
title,
so.
and I think they're gonna be they're curious, you know, and then to hear you actually say it like, you know, uncensored like that, it's a great thing. I appreciate it.
Yeah, anytime, Jerry. Where do you live?
I'm in Virginia, Fairfax, Virginia.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm sure we're gonna run into each other in one of those shows, but yeah, we'll do this again when you have any subject. Like I said, yeah, I just needed a couple of days
Yeah, with your schedule, absolutely.
in
But
advance to schedule it. Yeah. So actually, I'm gonna have to go right now. But it was great seeing you.
thank you, Milos.
Hopefully, people were not just listening, but they're gonna hear something that we said. Right? It's different from listen and hearing, understanding. So please
Absolutely.
I
Thank you,
listened
Milos.
to a couple of times. Okay, Jerry.
Thank you. Take care,
See ya.
Milos.